Welcome back to History of the Queer, a space where we sit with the echoes of our past, to better understand the voices of our present, to honor those who came before, not as perfect heroes, but as complex, feeling people who lived, loved, and fought in a world that often refused to see them. Today, we're not just learning a history, we're untangling a story of a phrase you might have heard tossed around, the Twinkie Defence. It sounds almost silly, doesn't it? A joke. But like so much of our history, the truth beneath the surface is far darker and far more consequential. The year was 1979. In San Francisco, a city that had become a beacon of hope, a profound tragedy had occurred. Dan White, a former city supervisor, had assassinated Mayor George Moscone and the city's first openly gay supervisor, Harvey Milk. Harvey was more than a politician. He was a symbol, a man who stood on steps with a megaphone and gave a community a vision of its own power. His loss was a deep collective wound. At the trial, the defense presented its case, and here is where the myth was born. A psychiatrist took the stand. He testified that the defendant, Dan White, had been suffering from a deep depression, and as evidence of this fractured mental state, he pointed to a change in White's behavior. A man once known for his health-conscious diet had recently begun to consume Twinkies and Coca-Cola. The media, the public, they latched onto this detail. The headlines practically wrote themselves. It was reduced to a soundbite, the Twinkie Defense. The narrative became that the lawyers were arguing the sugar made him do it. A laughably inadequate excuse for an unspeakable act. But that was not the legal argument. Not really. The junk food was never the cause. It was held up as a symptom, a symbol of a mind unraveling, meant to support a claim of diminished capacity. The idea that White was so impaired he could not have premeditated the murders, could not have possessed the malice aforethought required for a first-degree murder conviction. And the jury bought it. The verdict was not murder, it was voluntary manslaughter. The sentence? 7 years and 8 months. For 2 lives. For the death of a dream. In the Castro that night, the grief and the outrage could not be contained. The community's pain was met with a brutal police response. This was the White Night Riots. It was not a celebration. It was a raw, furious scream against a system that had just told them, in the clearest terms possible, that a gay life was worth less. That the murder of their hero could be explained away, even metaphorically, with a snack cake. The term Twinkie Defense entered our language as a punchline for any absurd legal excuse. But for us, for the queer community, its origin is not a joke. It is a stark reminder. A reminder of how our trauma can be minimized, how our stories can be twisted, and how injustice can be wrapped in a package that seems ridiculous to make it easier to swallow, for a world that doesn't want to taste the bitter truth. It's a story about media distortion. It's a story about a legal system failing to deliver justice. But most of all, it is a story about the fire that injustice can light. The White Night Riots were a turning point. A painful, messy, but undeniable declaration that we would no longer be quiet. That we would riot for Harvey. That we would riot for us. The phrase Twinkie Defense is a ghost. And today we choose to remember what it truly haunts. Thank you for listening, for remembering with us. This is History of the Queer. Until next time.